Fine. So we just discussed so far, if we talk about our class course, we started with core Java, then we saw servlets and JSPs. So here we learned the basics of Java, then we saw servlet JSPs. I just want a glimpse of how your web page looks like, or at least how we can try it out. Then we saw Hibernate. Hibernate is all about database, nothing special, just database thing. So if someone, it is written for those guys who are good in object-oriented programming languages. It's not about Java, any language which supports object. So it deals in objects and classes. And if you knows Java, so that's much better. Fine. Now what's next is, once we have the things running in core, web page, database, now what's next? So idea was initially I was planning to teach you Spring Core. It's similar to core Java, but I won't teach you Spring Core. I'll suggest, I told you that I will be away for 1 week. In that 1 week time, you guys have to go through one playlist which I have already on my channel, which contains on the Spring Core basics. So that will cover up. So I'm skipping that core. I was just thinking what to do in, or what should be done in that 1 week gap. So Spring Core you guys do from there, which I have gone thoroughly because it was not a class. I was just recording lectures for that channel. So we're going to start Spring Boot. So Spring Boot is one of the framework, one of the most uh, you can say mostly used framework in web development. And Spring Boot is not standalone, it's actually a part of Spring framework. And there's a line which is quite popular, I don't know if you have heard or not. Spring framework is known as mother of all frameworks in Java. Yes. So if you know Spring framework, and you want to integrate, think about if you have to integrate certain library or some framework to it. Yes, it has a flexibility. It can easily integrate it by using, we call this DI, or we also sometimes call this IOC. DI for dependency injection, IOC for inversion of control. You will get to know all these terms when you do Spring Core. So I'll give you a playlist later, or you can, okay, at least not now, don't refer this Spring Core, it is for later time. But for now, we are going to do Spring Boot, which uh, I'll say needs some basic understanding of Spring framework. But even if you are new and if you knows these top three technologies, even skip the JSPs. This is required when we are going for Spring MVC. This is for web. Only then you needed server JSPs. As since we are not going to cover Spring MVC, we can do the whole stuff or the things in Spring Boot. So that's why I'm going with Spring Boot. So if you knows core Java and Hibernate, you know how to configure Hibernate and you know how to create objects in core Java, then you can learn Spring Boot easily. There is no, that's all you can say prerequisite. If you have core Java understanding and Hibernate understanding, then we are good to go with Spring Boot. And Spring Boot is really simple. Why? Because that's how it is configured. You don't have to write much code. Everything is built in. It gives you lots of built-in features. So we'll definitely discuss about it. And but even before that, we have to see some properties or features. Then only we will see how to create Spring Boot project. Yep, there's a new way to create projects. When we did core Java, it was pretty easy, right? Right click, new project, then you can write project. It will give you that project name, Java project. Easy, nice. Then we learned one more project which was web application. So right click, new, and this time we picked dynamic web project. Okay, it has a different way of creation, and we also learned that. Next we learned there's one more way to create a project by using a, I would say, third-party tool, that is Maven. It's a complete different domain, and by using Maven we can integrate multiple frameworks in it. Maven supports that, or you can say they work together to create a good project. So new, then it gives the option for Maven project, and it has a different whole level of new level of architecture. And if you follow along the architecture of Maven projects, so you can easily put the things what it needs, like src main Java needs core Java, or Java files, basically test for test cases, src main resource for configuration files. So these three things are really important. And if you understood the proper, test we haven't used, if time permits, definitely we will write some test cases. There we will focus on src stat java. But for now, src main java and src main resources. These are the two source folders we have used in our project. And yep, that's it. And obviously the form file. So we learned all this way. Now, if you have to create Spring Boot, definitely we are going to use Maven. But we have multiple ways to create Spring Boot that we also cover. Okay, so before starting all these Spring Boot stuffs, we have to learn some basic concepts. Then we can jump over to Spring Boot project creation. We will spend almost 2 weeks on the Spring Boot. Yes. So let's see how it starts. Okay, so I have some screenshot from previous class. Let me pick from here. Okay, so when we say web project or web services, I don't think this is good. Wait a second, not this one. Close it, not this one. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so I'll take some reference, just saving some time. Otherwise, I have to recreate these images again and again. Okay, so the first part is about Spring Boot. So by using Spring Boot, we can create web applications. Okay, so let me do this HW. It's not your homework. Fine. So by using Spring Boot, we can create web applications. If you want, you can have whole control where if you want, you can configure your project. We have two ways, Java based configurations where everything is in Java files. Okay. But at least I'm against this. If you are using Maven or Spring Boot application, if you put everything in Java file, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it's possible that you can put everything in your Java files. No more properties or XML files. Other files are properties in configuration in properties file. Configuration in properties file. Or you can also do one thing. You can put all the configuration in XML file as well. So it supports multiple ways to create web applications. But we are not here to learn web app through Spring Boot. For that, we have front-end technologies, that is Angular. We will do that Angular after completion of Spring Boot. Okay, so that's about web app. I'm talking about here configuration part, Java-based configuration, where you can put that. Next is why we use nowadays, why a developer uses Spring Boot for writing REST APIs. And it's really straightforward and simple way, but yeah, you have to learn lots of new classes because it's a new framework, not even API, it's a framework. It's huge thing. So it provides lots of new classes, interfaces, and lots of annotations. And definitely we need to understand some configuration as well, how to configure Spring Boot application. If we talk about, again, I'm going back when we created core Java, so it doesn't need any a special configuration. We just need to put everything in src, that is a source folder for it, and some runtime environment, that is Java 17 or JDK 17, and some reference libraries like database. That's it. That's what it want, the core Java. Then we saw web applications. The configuration wise, we haven't done much. The only configuration it has inside web XML file. It was under web INF, this one. So configuration for web application, which file we have used? XML file for configuration, and there we put all the servlet configuration. But that's not it. You can have lots of configurations here. Thing is, we were not supposed to do much in servlet. That's why I haven't teased you. But yeah, if you put this out, you can see lots of possible tags are here. See? So yep, lots of things you can configure inside XML. But the whole idea why we're looking into this project, because by using XML you can also configure your project, and that we did in our web project. Fine. When we did hybrid application, we have configured everything, and again where we have configured in same XML file, and that's how we configure it. So it doesn't matter, definitely tags are different. Here it is session factory hybrid configuration. In, let me open this again, it was inside web app. So root tag here it was web app. In Hibernate the root tag was Hibernate configuration. So tags are getting different, the way you're writing is different, the way means the tags are different, the properties are different, but ultimately it's a XML based configuration. When it comes to Spring Boot, it will be dot properties file. Okay, so we will use properties file for configuration. Fine. REST APIs, we will see what is REST API. We have to discuss about it. But when it comes to Spring Boot application, we will use dot properties file for configuration. Or let me write a full name. Application dot properties file. That will be the configuration file. Application dot properties. And where it goes, if you understood the Maven structure, where we put all the configuration files inside src main resources. So this one, when we create a Maven project for Spring Boot, the configuration file will go inside src main resources. That's obvious. But that time we will use when we were using Hibernate. At that time we were using Hibernate configuration file. That's XML file. When we use Spring Boot, it will be a properties file. We'll discuss a lot. Okay, so that's how REST API project can be created. So we will focus on REST APIs. Although we have an option, we can also create web application as well. But as I said, we will use front end or the Angular for web application. Okay, this is done. What else we have in that image? Okay, and yeah, I've also mentioned that for front end we are going to use Angular or React. So Angular is the one, and for backend we are going to write Java code, obviously. In this screen, I have picked something which says HTTP status. So when we are dealing with REST APIs, or leave the REST APIs, if you are dealing in any web application, there is a request and response, and we have seen this in servlet class, how request and response goes. Not in detail, but we just created an image. Let me create it again. So how it goes, we have a client, we have a server. In the server, lots of web applications are deployed because server can have multiple applications, and there's one application where we're writing code. This is app 1 or 2, something you can name it. You write it app 1, then app 2, this is app 3. All these are deployed on where? Server. Oops. This box is client, the browser you can say right now. Oh, it becomes a television set. Okay, so now we have request which goes from client, not this way, to the server, and server decide which app has to load. So this is my application. I'll call this my app. And once request goes to my app, it processes the request, and once request is properly processed, project generates response, it goes to server, and server generates a final response to the client. That's the high level picture how your request and response flows. So if you can recall how we use request, you can easily understand request and response. Again, there's no need of a servlet class, as I mentioned, just giving a high level picture. So request and response we can use. So that's a high level picture. So client request and server response. So client request goes to the server, server response goes to the client. Okay, clear. So when this communication is happening, there might be some issue. There might be chance that some issue might happen or some errors you encounter. You must have encountered some website which says 404 not found. The URL is missing, or sometimes 500 error, server issues. So all these are known as HTTP status. So we have a wide variety of error codes. So if you have some status which you want to show, you can use it. So we have categories. So that's your first homework, guys. Check out the HTTP status. Basically errors, for errors, or for web errors. So it starts from 1.x, which I already mentioned, to 5xx. So one is for something, then two or something, and then 500 something. So 500 or 500 onwards, it is all about server issues. 400 is all about incorrect request when client is requesting. So when client requests, it is not up to the mark. Think about, we are sending some data which is not properly maintained or not properly created. So how it will work? So you will get 40 something, the exception from browser. Browser itself complained that you are not sending your request properly. And after processing, if server gets failed and something goes wrong, maybe some null pointer exception or file not found or anything which goes wrong, so you might see some 500 or 500 onwards exceptions. So spend some time and check out what these exceptions are, what's the purpose. Not much in detail, but mostly use uh, errors. Okay, that's it. Let's see next image. Okay, that's a lot. Let me zoom a little bit. Okay. So think about, if I have to create this image, it will take at least 10 to 15 minutes to create and explain. So I just saved my at least 10 minutes here. It's blur, but yeah, definitely you can zoom and you can edit it. Let me explain you from the image. Okay, so what we have here now, next thing is we have web services. Web service is nothing, just a piece of code which is executing standalone. Think about, I have a idea and I want to create some PDF generation thing. So I will say I will write a code which takes some data, a raw data, and I can generate its title and its content and return it back in a PDF format, some data format. So that's my web service, a standalone piece of code. Think about web service like a library, basically. If I have to connect with database, with MySQL database, I know I can download that jar file and integrate it with my Eclipse. So this will give me all the features of MySQL connection. Likewise, if I want to release my code on cloud, so anyone can integrate it. So we call those web services. And web services are of two types, SOAP and REST. SOAP is all about XML. It only deals in XML file or XML data. But when it comes to REST, REST is much simpler, more robust, and now widely adapted service. In 90s or 200, it was all about SOAP services. It was really famous at that time. And but again, XML has a limitation. It's hard to read, and readability is one concern. And you have to, if you have to put lots of data, so it complex the whole flow. Someone has to read it manually, and if someone has to read it manually, so that will take a lot of time to just process that data. So that was, SOAP was kind of going almost that way, deprecated soon, but still lots of legacy projects are there which are using SOAP technology. Okay, now REST is popular a lot. It's so much popular. So check out what is REST. That's your next homework. And uh, check out what is RESTful API, okay, or just REST. What does it mean? What does it do? Like some bit of history, something about it. Just search in YouTube and watch 10 or 15 minutes video. That will be more than enough to understand what is RESTful API. Definitely, I'll explain in my own way, but have some idea from out some other resources. Okay. By the way, it's a full form. Its full form is representational state transfer. Kind of awful name, right? What does it mean? Representational state transfer. Leave it. But in our application, when somebody says, okay, I'm going to create a microservices, so they are actually kind of writing web services. Not exactly, but microservice is part of web services. Web service, you can say a big thing. Microservice, like its name says microservice, some small uh, piece of code which is running independently. That's what microservice meant, which can be reused multiple times, and it can be integrated with multiple other services. That's how its robustness. It cannot break, at least. That's the whole idea. Okay, so we are going to write some REST APIs, and REST APIs, RESTful web services, we can say. So what exactly happened? Now I just gave in one image here. What it says, client request. Okay, what is that? So client is requesting something in some format, right? That's the format. But when it requests, that means it is trying to communicate to the server. Communication is happening. So what is that communication medium? How do we know that client is saying something? Server must be know. I'm speaking something. You guys are getting it because you know we are using a medium. The language is English here. So we both understand. That's why we are interacting. Likewise, if client saying I'm sending a request, so that means there must be a medium. They are talking in a language. What's the language? What's the medium? So the language of medium is here. We call this JSON medium, the key value pair. This one. So client is something. Right now I have explained what my client is right now. Earlier we saw client is my browser. Okay, let me write here. Right now I'm expecting client is browser. So this web page or web communication is great. It's happening. Client request, right? I'm the client. I know I can, if I Google and type something, let's say HTML wiki page. So this is my communication. I enter some text, it understand and gives me result. That's the response. I clicked on the link, that's my request, and it gives me response. That's how user interacts. So right now, who is the client here? The browser is client, which is interacting with the Google server and asks for HTML Wikipedia page. Clear. But when it comes to code, when it comes to this REST APIs, REST API is something which is actually a piece of code. So in that case, the client will become that Java code or any language code. So that's why I mentioned client is something, a program written in any web enabled language like Android, iOS, PHP, C Sharp, or uh, Node.js. So you can think of any language which can request something on web. So this time client is changed because REST API is all about coding. Here is no visual client which you can use. Right now I can see my at least I can see my icon, client icon, that is browser. This is a browser, this is a browser. So we have different browsers. I can see with the icon, that's a different browser. These are my clients to interact with the server. But this time when we say REST API, it's all about coding. So now client is different. Client could be any language, Android, iOS, as I mentioned. And when they're interacting, there must be a medium. So that's a medium is JSON. Very famous, and you guys should know how JSON looks like. So JSON is all about key value. We will discuss about more in JSON in next class, but that's the medium. So client interacts in JSON medium, and JSON is all about key values. So it sends data in key value. It goes to database, a server. Server interacts, respond back in the same medium. At least that's the default functionality. If client sends in JSON, server sends response in JSON. If client sends data in XML, yes, it's possible. You can send response request in XML. You can expect server will also send response in XML format. So JSON is actually is used as an interaction between these two endpoints. Now, what we have here, I just mentioned a program written in Java. So server will expose a REST endpoint. So the client can use that endpoint and access the REST services. So we will write some code in language Java, and I will expressly mention, okay, this is the endpoint. If you want this data, you request this endpoint and you can get the data. But the condition is you have to use JSON as a medium. And good thing is by default Spring Boot interacts in JSON format. So you don't have to write anything explicitly or some customized code that you're writing or saying something to the Spring Boot that, okay, I'm going to use the JSON, so please understand my language and process. No, you don't need to do all that. Spring Boot understand it, and by default all the interaction happens in JSON format. So that's a good thing. So our focus should be how JSON can we understand, how it converts the data, how that conversion is implicit. It is abstract in nature. We have learned object-oriented programming. Abstraction was one keyword in that whole feature. So this is the picture here. Abstraction is all about data hiding. It's about, by the way, it's different. Abstraction and data hiding is a different thing. But here we have a complete abstraction over how Spring Boot do all that conversion, how it understands the JSON. It's already written in its library. And as a developer, I don't need to worry about that. I just need to focus on what has been asked by my seniors, what they want, and accordingly I'll write my code. So I'm not going beyond this point. So tomorrow we'll continue on the same point. So what JSON is, how we can convert, how it looks like, your Java class can be converted into a JSON format. So we'll discuss more about JSON format. Then we will continue on Spring Boot project creation. So one more question I can add in this homework list: check out what is JSON. Again, you can Google it, and I'm not sure. Let me check on W3 School's website. JSON. They must have something. Yep, they have. Or you can go through at least this section. This must be enough. If you are new to JSON format, never used, come on. So you can definitely go through this W3 school website and have an idea how JSON looks like. And definitely, yes, tomorrow we will discuss about it. So syntax, XML, data types, parse, leave it, stringify, leave it, objects, arrays, and yeah, that's it. Just these three from here and two here. So here you will get to know the syntax, how it is different from XML, and how many data types it has, then objects and array. But yeah, you guys free to cover all points. It will help you in long run. It's not about this class, guys. If you definitely we are learning here, so we can continue on this IT industry for a long time. If that's the goal, so I'll suggest go over all topics, but at least if you have a minimum time, because you have to cover some more topics as well, so at least cover these 5 topics, 3 from here, 2 from here.